Well, hello. Hello, hello, hello. I have got a really yummy episode that I am so excited to get to dive into today with all of you. And I'm really excited because today I was taking some time to just pour out a few other episodes. This week has been amazing. I got to meet quite a few of you on 90-minute intensives, which is always fun because I see my one-on-one clients every week, but with 90 minutes, you are somebody completely new that I've never met before. And this week I had three of those with just incredible women, and you know who you are. So, from those conversations, I had a lot of just fiery, beautiful ideas coming up. I remember there was a night, it was probably Thursday night with my partner, just staying up to like midnight with him, just discussing these things that I'm seeing and these patterns that I'm wanting to share on the podcast. So this is the first episode in probably a good 2 to 3 episodes that I'm gonna be dropping as we go forward. That I'm really, really excited and looking forward to. And I'm just, yeah, I'm filled with all the champagne bubbles, excitement of knowing like what's ahead. So I wanted to start all of that by taking time today to do this episode, ooh, which came through over the course of this weekend and really taking some time. I'm recording this on Sunday. I've had this incredible weekend that I'm going to talk about a little bit in the episode today that just filled me with some of the most beautiful, overwhelming feelings of gratitude and awe at the life I am living. And quite a bit of like, oh my God, this is my life. This is my life. Like, what? And feeling that, like, holy shit, I had no idea it was going to be this amazing. I mean, when I got divorced, I definitely had a very, very deep soul call. That's something I've been talking about with a lot of you on the 90 minutes. There's just this like knowing deep in the center of your being that calls to you that sometimes like doesn't make sense mentally and you don't know all the hows, right? But you can feel deep inside of you this call to something more. And so I was really reflecting back on how, yes, I had that call and thank God I followed it. Just that's where all the gratitude comes in, right? Of like, oh my God, it was so hard. As you know, I have a client right now who's in the middle of it and was saying to me this week, I think kind of feeling like she was supposed to get to a point where it feels like really solid and she knows, and she goes through the divorce with this very like certain approach. And I was like, heads up, like if you think this isn't what I looked like going through my divorce, you're wrong. And one of the things she said was just how, dysregulating it was going through this. And I was like, yeah, when I actually filed for divorce and then went through the 9 months of that process. And actually, it was really just like the first 4 months until we actually separated and weren't living in the same house. It was one of the most stressful, dysregulating, like nervous system constantly on fire, crying all the time, and just kind of having to like hang on to that inner soul feeling to get through it period of my life I've probably ever had. Like it was really, really intense. So reassuring her that like when you know, and even when you make the decision and you move forward, it does not mean that it's not still really intense and can be really tough. But also reassuring her that there does come a point where for me it got better. And that was the moment when we were able, me and my ex-husband, to be apart, right? He moved out and I had my own space. And that was when I was able to stop being so triggered and dysregulated all the time. I think a lot of us mistake those feelings of dysregulation as like, oh, I'm making a mistake, when really it can often just be like symptoms of, maybe just symptoms of CPTSD, and also just moving into the unknown is scary. So this weekend, it was feeling like the immense gratitude of holy shit, I did something very, very scary, the 5 years ago that I got divorced. And all I really had to go off of was like this hope and this soul call telling me like, I think there's something else out there for me. And I knew there was something else, and I hoped that it could be better. I had no framework for that. I had no like clear vision of what that was going to be. It was absolutely the unknown. And now, what I want to do in this episode is kind of drop you all in to the reality of being able to say with absolute certainty for myself and my life, like to my past self from 5 years ago, like, oh, sweetie, it's going to be so much better than you can even imagine. Like, you have no idea what's ahead. You can't even comprehend what you are going to feel, what you are going to experience, how much love you are going to know, how much just like, I think the biggest piece is like how much you're going to feel. You're going to feel it all, and you're going to become this powerhouse of a person that then gets to live with that you because she did the journey to become that person. I was saying that to one of my clients today of like, this is just kind of the price that has to be paid of, if you want to live a life where you will like bravely, confidently know yourself, have your back, that means going into the unknown. That means bravely stepping into the wilderness, like Brene Brown says, and seeing your dragons and facing them. And what I've learned with my dragons is it's not that I'm out there to slay them. What happens is I see my dragons, which I would say are like my greatest fears, the things that I've rejected or disowned about myself, and I reclaim them. And instead of killing my dragons, I end up riding them. Which I know my best friend Quinn would totally love because she is so into dragons. She's a total dragon rider. So that's just my little like entryway into my little kind of here's the bigger picture of the journey I want to take you guys on. What I've been thinking leading up to this, and what I want to do in the episode is break down some different areas. I took some time today to be like, okay, what are the areas in my life that actually are like significantly better? And I do want to say, I'm sure I'm going to leave out areas that I'll, maybe talk about in the future, but these were the top ones that really stood out to me. So the areas that I came up with, the first one that I'm going to be talking about is community. The second one is work. The third one is physical and mental space. The fourth one and final one is romantic partnership. So we're going to go through each of those, and I'm really going to, in each of those, talk about like what it was like for me before when I was married, and then what it is like for me now. And keeping in mind, I am at the point now, I got divorced in September of 2019. So that's about 2024, about over 5 years now. And really, yeah, one of the things I want to say is, some of these key pieces of like community and romantic partnership have only clicked into place within the last year, which just fucking blows my mind. I'm like, oh my God, that's right. I really feel like a lot of that shifted for me when I made that incredibly brave, badass move to go to Burning Man last year. Like a month before it happened, I decided, a friend invited me. And that was such a catalyst when I was there for realizing things about myself, for wanting more, and like vibrationally opening to more in my life. So I'm going to dig into that more as we talk about it. But let's start with the first section. Okay, so the first area of my life that I have seen dramatic change over the last 5 years from, me when I was married to now being post-divorce would be community. So previously, I mean, as you all, those of you that have been listening know, I was raised Mormon. So my only framework around community is through the lens of Mormonism. And I was taking time to think about it, and I was like, the bummer thing about community within Mormonism is because that community is based within a religious framework, and the foundation of it is everybody subscribing to very specific rules and ideals and ways of living, that creates a space that can be very, looking back, it's very conditional and it's very judgmental. And even if you're not like actually having people judge you right out, there's a psychology of judgment that creates a lot of like hiding. And I feel, looking back, like a lot of inauthenticity, because there are very real consequences to, being messy or talking about what's actually happening for you. Especially when you talk about that stuff and like everybody else is hiding it, so nobody can relate and you just feel super weird. I remember kind of towards the end of my journey when I did start speaking out more about like my confusion and things that weren't making sense actually at church, just feeling people like get frustrated with me and kind of like not liking me bringing up stuff that made everybody uncomfortable. So now I do want to caveat and say, because one thing that was really that I was noticing as I was thinking about, okay, what was my community like before? I did find amazing, wonderful individuals within the Mormon community. So I have friends that I am still I adore, love, would do anything for. Some that are still Mormon, some that have now left, but that I found through being Mormon. My thoughts, though, on that are that it's not so much them being Mormon or that the religion that made them great. It's that who they are as a human is wonderful. And we were drawn to each other for those reasons. So I did manage, I think, just because of the human that I am, the energy and connection that I elicit and kind of put out, I was able to make deep connections with a few very key women, especially in my ward in Oakland. I have just, so much respect and love for the friends that I made in that environment. It was much tougher when I moved out here to Rockwall. And I do think that actually was an indicator of like, here in Rockwall, the community was way more conservative, way more strict, not as much gray. Oakland had done an incredible job of being more nuanced and more open to people's actual journeys and what it looks like and that life is messy. When we moved out to Rockwall, I really, the friends that I did eventually become close with in our ward actually all ended up leaving Mormonism. So my only community experience was through the lens of Mormonism. And in that, the community, you're not really getting together because you like love and want to be with each other as much as you're being constantly together because you're at church or you're doing activities or you're serving and you're having to be in service roles with each other. So the community feeling is more about what we're doing together more than like actual real relationship, like how are we together? Who are we being together? And I do think one of the biggest drawbacks to a community that was only, that was based in religion was that you do have to be a certain way to be a part of that group. And it's not safe to express what you're feeling fully because everybody's, in this, when you're in a religious community, we're all subscribing to the same rules, the same ideas. And if you start not feeling that way, as was shown in my journey, you eventually will not fit in the community. So post leaving, I left religion at the beginning of 2019 and I filed for divorce a couple months later. I really lost all of what community was at that time. Now that I have like what I feel is a true community, I realize I don't feel like that was actually like the version of community I most want and needed, but it was still all I had at that time. So because I left their religion, I lost the community entirely. And really not until going to the burn last year. So for the first, 4 years of my journey post-divorce, I did not have a community. I live out in the burbs. And beyond like a couple moms that I knew through like the school who I love and adore, but it's not like we're a community, maybe we go out for coffee or catch ups. I did not have a group of people that I felt connected to. And it was when I went to the burn that I realized like, holy shit, I need community. The camp I stayed with, I just felt how amazing it feels to be with a group of people that I can love and be a part of and feel like they're this chosen family. And especially for me, it's important to have, friends of both genders, to feel like I have male friends and female friends. And out here prior to that, I really just had, friends that were moms through the school. And, as some of you have heard, like I had a few male friends that I had kept through dating, right? Guys that I dated and it hadn't continued romantically, but we'd still decided to stay friends. So the burn showed me I need community. Community makes my life so much richer. And then magically at the beginning of this year, thanks to experiencing ecstatic dance at the burn in one of the camps there, I came back and searched it here in Dallas and found that there is an ecstatic dance community. And I started going. New Year's was my first dance that I went to. And oh my goodness, y'all. I cannot emphasize enough how much this aspect has made my life so much better. To have a community of individuals that are creating a space that is very open and free, a space where like there is a lot of respect for everyone being on their own journeys and being in their own process. One of the things I love the most about when we go to ecstatic dance, before it's opened and everything, is explanations around like people are going to be in their feelings. And if you see someone like struggling or crying, like you don't need to go up and try to quote, fix that. If they need support, we can reach out, but also there's not this like expectation of perfection and everybody having it all together that I felt a lot of pressure for in the Mormon community. One of the things I've like just can't get enough of in my community now is that it is filled with people who are like me, very real and wild and messy and authentic. And being around them in community is like retraining my brain and feeling how good it feels to be around them is retraining my nervous system too, that like it's safe to be honest, it's safe to be messy, it's okay to be not always on or smiling or happy, and there's space for that here. So community has been really big too, because I've realized the human that I am, and I just have to say, I think this is most of us. I don't think I'm just like this, weird unicorn out here. We are very complex, and I can't just have all of my social needs met just through like interacting with my children and my clients and my partner. There is a deep part of me that also needs the experiences that are had in community, in connection with people that are friends, in connection with people that are just acquaintances. Like, it's not like I know everybody in this community, but just being in a space, getting to laugh, getting to dance, getting to interact, getting to learn their stories, hugely, hugely valuable, and has added a depth and a richness to my life that 5 years ago, pre-divorce, no clue, had no idea I wanted this, had no idea it was important to me. I mean, I didn't even know till the burn last year how important it was. And now that I do, it is vital. Like, I don't want to live without community. Okay, so that is one of the spaces that like I want to expand your mind around of like, wow. I went from like a Mormon community where I felt like I always had to be perfect and have everything together, and actually in many ways like contributed, I think, to my depression and my overwhelm in my private life, because I constantly felt like I wasn't enough, I wasn't keeping up. And no matter how much they tell you like it's fine, or you should be able to take care of yourself, there's still this underlying pressure to be perfect that I think is inevitable, just because that's part of the culture in that space. And realizing now, I didn't even know there were spaces like this that could have people like this and events like this, right? Spaces where I could dance, where I could laugh, where I could play and just be really childlike at times and joyful with other adults who get it and who are on similar, I would say similar like spiritual life journeys. Obviously our individual paths are very different, but there are like themes that we're all going through that in having them around me helps me see and understand myself better in the world, instead of feeling like this anomaly, this weird person that like doesn't fit in, which one of my clients was talking about this week, of how difficult it is with where she lives, just looking around and like everybody looks perfect and everybody looks like they're in happy marriages. And she's like, but deep down, a part of her knows, she's like, I think a lot of them are pretending because I'm pretending. Everybody thinks I have a good marriage. And deep down, I know we don't really talk to each other. And we're like, roommates that pass in the hall. So super, super key, super important. Something that I never would have guessed I wanted, didn't even hope for, right? That wasn't even on the list when I left. And that the universe knew was key for me and has brought in now at this point in my journey. And now that it's here, I'm like, oh my God, could never live without this. Okay, so second section that I wanted to talk about was work. So this will be very different for a lot of you, because I do talk to a lot of you that actually, have your own work or your own careers. But for me, once again, due to being raised Mormon, I really had not had growing up. I never was encouraged to pursue a career, or even like asked or had discussions like, what are you passionate about? What do you want to do? I just remember so much of my Mormon upbringing and my, conditioning through the religion being, you're going to be a mom, you're going to get married, and you're going to be a mom, and it's going to be great, and you're going to love it. So I did that. I like totally without questioning did that. And I was a 24/7 stay-at-home mom. And definitely in the beginning, I would even say like I was terrified of having a career. Like I couldn't even think of like wanting to do something like that. And I do, I think that's a lot of like in the infantilizing that can happen to a lot of women in my situation, where you are in very controlling, perhaps controlling religious environments that tell you your role ahead of time. And so it does feel very scary to think of yourself as doing anything else. It feels terrifying to like, oh my God, how am I going to have a job? How am I going to make my own money? So do know that at the beginning of my journey, that was really scary, thinking about providing for myself and having work and a job that would be mine. Also, another insight that I had when thinking about where I was at with, my quote work previous to getting divorced, my only work was raising my kids. And actually for me, that was really not a good fit. Now that I know more about myself, now that I know about my trauma, now that I know about my CPTSD, motherhood is like the hardest thing for me. It's very, very difficult, not at all because of my children. My children are amazing, but absolutely related to my personal trauma and then dealing with CPTSD. I'm very I have a lot of sensitivity to noise. I have a lot of my own like a complex relationship with control and being able to feel safe, and being able to like do things and feel like I'm getting a measurable result that feels good. That is like not raising children at all. So that led to, with that being my only source of work, it led to me feeling super isolated, very overwhelmed. And, you know, when your only identity is motherhood, you have no way to like think of yourself and know yourself and love yourself except through like how your children are being and how they're turning out. And that is like, oh my God, y'all, that is such a shit show of a way to live. Only being able to define yourself through, you know, how your kids are turning out. Oof, oof, bleh, bleh. I'm like, no, thank God, not for me. Yeah, it was not a fit for me. And I just look back and I have so much compassion for how little I knew that it wasn't. I knew I was struggling. I mean, at the time I had severe depression, lots of suicidal ideation that I was just relentlessly hating myself over. And now, you know, to just kind of fast forward and contrast that with this theme that we're using in the episode of like, it can be so much better than you can possibly imagine. I now have my own business and I have work that is mine, that I am passionate about and immensely fulfilled by. This incredible brain that I have, that now that I know more about myself, I'm like, oh my God. I have a brain that is like so fast and analytical, and it just loves digesting and understanding and finding patterns. And that's why it's part of what makes me like such an incredible coach, because I can retain high amounts of knowledge and like find patterns really quickly. It's a gift for sure, and one that I've developed more with my coaching practice. That is not helpful when all you're doing is raising children day in and day out, and the only patterns are like repetitive dinner, laundry, getting kids up to school, like nothing new. It's all the same. That will drive you crazy and depressed and psychotic so quickly. At least, you know, it did for me. It was not, looking back, it was not what I needed. Versus now I have so much freedom in my work because I am my own boss. I get to dive into all sorts of different things. I get to create things, something I would never, if you'd asked me 5 years ago, like, how passionate are you about creating things? I'd be like, that sounds scary. And now I'm like, yes, I want to contribute to the world. I want to have an impact. I want to bring my gifts. I want to birth things into the world. I want to change people's lives just through helping them see themselves more clearly. So that area of my life is like night and day now. I had nothing that was like my own, that felt like my baby, my gift to the world. Because in many ways, I don't view my children that way. Like my children's paths are very much their own. And I don't like actually getting too sucked in on my children's lives and it all feeling like how they turn out or what they want is a reflection of me. I saw that a lot in my mother. My mother lived absolutely vicariously through us as her children. So for me, the answer to that has been having my own work that is my passion, that is my space to be creative, to share, to be imaginative, to be playful, to give and to serve others in the way that feels good to me. And once again, just that was not even something I hoped for when I left. Really, all I hoped for when I left my marriage was, I hope I can, make enough money to keep things. I hope I can survive. And I will say this is the one area in my life that I would say I still have a lot of fear and things that I'm working around, beliefs that I am healing and changing and understanding my relationship with money. So don't mistake this by thinking that I'm like, oh, everything's perfect and amazing and that's why it feels so good, because everything's I have tons of money and I don't ever have to worry. That's not what I'm saying. But what is so much better, like what the trade-off was, right? Because when I was in my marriage, I had, quote, safety. I had financial safety, but I didn't have something that was mine that I was building and creating, that felt like my contribution to the world. And I didn't even know that that was what it was going to become when I left and became a coach. I just knew I was super passionate about it. I knew I needed work. And I knew I didn't want to go do work in something that was going to be unfulfilling for me. So huge, huge, incredible contrast there from being a stay-at-home mom to now running having a career that I love, having a business that I love and that I'm passionate about, and that I spend, the majority of my time and my energy and my thoughts in. A huge amount of my energy goes to my work now. All right. So the third section that I want to talk about is going to be how my physical and mental space has changed, pre-divorce to post-divorce. So previously when I was married, and definitely like growing up, all the way growing up until, and then through my marriage, I was always with others, like always, growing up in a family with like 8 kids. I don't remember ever really having my own space mentally or physically. I mean, I did have my own room once I was in high school, but even then there was, by the time I was in high school, there were at least like six of us, 6 total kids. And then my mom was just very, very, very present in my life all the time. So I really had no physical space and then absolutely no mental space. My mom was hyper controlling of my individuality, of my personality, of what I was doing and thinking. It all kind of had to be run through her and filtered through her. And when I got into my marriage, I definitely had a lot more expansion in, I would say, like the mental space piece, because he was gone at work a lot of the time and we lived in Oakland, and that was where I really got to meet new friends that expanded my view of the world. But in some ways it was tough because he worked so much, we did have a lot of like physical space as far as like missing and being lonely and being very isolated at the same time. And I remember that being a lot when I was just like home alone with our babies in those years when we were in Oakland. And really, I didn't like having space at that time because I was really codependent. So I needed someone around. I didn't really have a sense of self. So not being around someone actually felt really scary. So that's all to say, I never knew growing up how much I actually would enjoy and love having physical and mental space from others. In the last 5 years, I have definitely learned and realized how much of a introvert I am. I know that will shock probably a lot of you, but I once heard it described as like how the difference is introverts recharge alone and extroverts recharge with others. And so even though I love, doing my podcast, I love being with clients, I love being out in groups, where I recharge is really when I'm on my own or when I'm like one-on-one with my partner. So I have realized the creature that I am needs alone time to recharge. It is crucial. It is not a like luxury. It is a need. It has to be there or I will not do well mentally. That is not a fit for the life I had pre-divorce, where I was always with the children, or I was always with the children and my husband. And if I tried to like get away or have alone time, it meant asking him to babysit or having to advocate or like try to, get a babysitter or get away. And where that put me was just, I was not going to go that extra effort to do that. It just, yeah. At the time, with all of the depression that I was dealing with and all of the like to try and get time alone, which funny enough, I'm thinking back actually, I'm like, that actually was a huge piece. It was hard, but it was a huge piece in what allowed me to eventually heal enough to get divorced. Was I did start taking alone time. And I'm realizing it's because I stopped going to church and my ex-husband took the kids. So I would have like 3 hours of alone time on Sundays. And I remember being shocked because I was like, oh, wow, this is so much more replenishing. Like they would come home from church and I would be so much more loving and kind and happy and connected because I'd had time away from everybody. So that's kind of a fun little like, woo, that was coming in through my brain right there, on the importance of alone time. The other piece too, I would say, was just, you know, I needed alone time to start figuring myself out. And that was something that I took more of before I got divorced. And now, right, post divorce, it is everything. It is so instrumental to my mental health. I have fully accepted, owned, and love the reality that I am a human who thrives so much more in an environment like this, in a life like this, where half the time I do not have my kids. Half the time I get to be alone. I get to have silence. I get to have my thoughts to myself. Or, you know, during that time, I get to have my partner with me where I'm having adult conversations. I am not having to take care of anybody else or keep track of people and keep them alive. One of the things that like pretty soon after, even before we like finalized the divorce, once we'd gotten separated, I realized, oh my God, having a space that is all my own, having a home that was, you know, mine, was so incredibly comforting. A space where I could, you know, I could come back to and not have to worry about like dynamics with a partner coming home and like how they were feeling or needing to manage their stuff or worrying about fights. Early on in my divorce, especially, like having weekends away from my kids was really refreshing for me. You know, just having wide open swaths of time. I needed time. I needed physical space away from my children and a partner to have the mental space to do the work I was denied in my childhood of learning who I was and what I want and who I want to be in this world. And I see that so much in clients who have narcissistic parents. If you're raised with a narcissistic parent, you don't get to individuate in childhood, in teenagehood. Like that is not, you try to individuate, you're going to be smacked down. You are there to be an extension of them. And if you don't play that role, life gets really rough. And the few times I tried to stray off of that, the kickback from my mother was so aggressive. I learned really quickly, like, nope, I will just become whatever she needs. And in my marriage, although I wouldn't say that pressure was as extreme as it was with my mother, that was just kind of, I think, part of the soup that we were in due to that Mormon upbringing and like me just accepting like this is my role and us not really questioning like, hey, this doesn't seem to be a like mental health fit for you. Maybe we should do something else, right? It just never came up really for me and my partner until those last few years when I started going to therapy and realized like, oh, wait a second. I don't think this environment is working for me. So fast forwarding to now, I have a space that is all my own. It is so incredibly freeing. One of the biggest things I have loved is being able to try new things without judgment. In so many ways, like I said earlier, I feel like I missed out on key developmental stages in my childhood and teenage years that I am now getting to go through. There's a lot of my journey at this time that is about playing and exploring and being curious. And the key is having an environment where I can do that without shame and without fear of punishment. That may sound surreal, but I'm like, I just know a lot of you are going to relate to this because I know a lot of you come from homes where it's kind of the same dynamic that you were raised in. And then you went into a marriage where there is a lot of shame and judgment and emotional and verbal punishment when you don't show up the ways your partner thinks you should. And this is that, like, I could never have dreamed how much better it was going to be for me to have a space where I can grow into an adult, basically, and really have the experiences and the, trying something and realizing, maybe I want to do it differently, or maybe I don't really like that. Maybe I want to do it this way instead, without the overseeing of a parent or a partner always critiquing and judging me. That just really, really hurts your psyche and really stunts its growth and keeps it in that infantilizing, right? This is what I'm talking about, where you always kind of stay in a feeling of like you're the child and this other person's the parent, and you are afraid of them being mad, or you're afraid of getting in trouble. Even though you're an adult in your life, you're still operating within those power dynamics. So having the mental space, the physical space has been huge. It has created leaps and bounds for me in my ability to individuate and to truly step into myself and who I want to be as an adult. Now, I want to move into the final space that I want to talk about, which is romantic partnership. And this is really, I would say, what kind of sparked all of this was this weekend that my partner and I got to enjoy. And so I'll start off a little bit by, talking, and maybe I won't go into the weekend just yet. Maybe I'll start by telling you a little bit about, romantic partnership for me, up until this time. So I would say in my marriage, as I was just discussing, romantic partnership really felt more like kind of a parent-child dynamic with my previous husband. Looking back, I'm like, that was really like no fault of either of ours. It just was what we had always seen. It was what we had always known. We had no other playbook. And especially in a very patriarchal religion where, women can't even hold leadership positions in certain ways, or like hold the priesthood, that just plays right into that same dynamic. And although I would say I was very outspoken in a lot of ways in my marriage, and my ex-husband did actually, in comparison to a lot of my clients, we did not have nearly the emotional control, manipulation, and abuse that I've seen in some, but it was still there to an extent. And I also didn't really understand like what I was wanting in a relationship looking back. I just kind of thought, a little bit of like, this is what you do, and you fall in love, and then you play house. So over the last 5 years in dating all of these partners, I really have been playing with and learning more about like, what am I actually looking for? What does a truly good romantic relationship feel like, look like, sound like? And previously there were definitely elements that I knew I wanted, that I've kind of like built as we've gone along. But one of the things that I feel like there was like a deep soul call around when I left my marriage was this thought of like, I want to experience the kind of love, and I know I've said this in episodes previously, of this like soul knowing kind of love, this being able to be completely transparent, entirely authentically myself with another human, without fear of them, without needing to shrink myself or hide who I am to try and get love from them. And I did know that this was a piece of it for me. So where I didn't know, like I had no idea community, work, or space were that important for me when I left my marriage, this I knew. And I had really only experienced like coming close to that one time I dated a guy in high school. So it only really had like, and I look back and I'm like, that was like a baby, itty bitty baby glimmer of what was coming in my future. So over the last 4 to 5 years, I have definitely fallen in love with people, had amazing experiences, also had rough experiences that have all taught me wonderful things. What I want to dive into and kind of share with you guys that has just lately been blowing my mind is what it is like with my current partner and how unbelievably perfectly, I don't know if the word is like aligned for me, he is in ways that I never guessed, in ways that my mind couldn't even comprehend would be important to me. So let's dive into it. One of the things that I really didn't know I needed with my partner that has kind of, I think, caught me off guard. Previously in relationships, I really was caught up in like the love and the fun and the excitement and was not as intentional about owning my need to have someone who is very grounding, that can nurture and love me back. I am a huge lover. As Quinn will tell you all, when I fall in love with somebody, I go all in. I love to find all of their favorite things and find all of my favorite things and minimize any of the bad things. Like I just go full bore. So one of the things that I have been so surprised about with him, and I guess I maybe shouldn't have been surprised. Let me say I've been surprised at how much it matters, because in previous relationships, I did not really value or insist on this. And that is, and I'm going to take you back a little bit, that was that at the beginning of this year, I started reading Pete Walker's book about complex PTSD. And when I finally acknowledged and respected, oh shit, I have got a lot going on here. I have got some really intense trauma that has led to a nervous system that reacts in this way. I started to respect and be like, no more. I'm not going to just keep dating anybody and everybody who's interested in me just for the sake of like exploration. And I made a pretty intentional commitment to myself where I just said, I want to date someone to heal. I want to date someone that I can actually openly acknowledge my CPTSD with and manage it with them. And that was pure magic. I do believe that was part of the reason why I met my partner when I did, because I was finally ready for more. I was finally telling the universe, like, okay, I see myself clearly and I want to respect and love myself in a different way. And I can do that by picking partners that I can actually heal with. And that is what came through. In many ways, you know, on the surface, my partner does not fit the ideas that I had in mind of like what I need. Like I remember telling Quinn when I came back from the burn, you know, I just had this idea of like, oh, I probably need to date like, you know, somebody else who's a leader in coaching in their field, like maybe somebody else who has a podcast and is like doing his stuff. And that's kind of like the only relationships I'd seen were like other that I kind of admired were other coach relationships or, you know, people who in my field of work that were kind of like having connected, more conscious relationships. So imagine my surprise when I meet him and he's, you know, 15 years older than me and he's not in anything like that as far as like a career. And yet, from the beginning, I felt this soul knowing with him that I've had. I definitely would say I've pretty much with lots of other partners that I've met, I felt like these little soul knowings. But the difference with this partner is from the beginning, he was incredibly nurturing and loving towards me. And that is something that, although I'd experienced like, I don't know what the word would be, like love from others, I had not necessarily experienced nurturing from a partner. And we were actually talking about this the other day, just how much we naturally for each other do these things that with other people it's been so difficult. And this was like, I wanted to break down this list for you of like some of the things in our relationship that I would never have guessed would be so important, that have like shocked me with the whole this is better than I ever could have imagined. Because so many of you are in relationships where I see your brains working overtime to be like, the grass isn't greener on the other side. There's no way it could be better. And I'm going to do an episode coming up around this piece of like, sometimes when you've been in an emotionally abusive or especially like neglectful relationship, your brain has developed mechanisms to keep you in that, which are mechanisms of being like, it's not that bad. I'm sure it's fine. I don't really need this. Maybe that's not even a big deal. Maybe I'm broken. Maybe I'm the one with the problem. And actually, what I've even seen is that that's typically mechanisms that you developed in childhood to keep you okay with your parents' neglect and abuse. But when you have that in your marriage, your brain starts working against you to keep you in the situation and keep you in the known, just to keep settling into the known. Like, this must be enough. This must be enough. And what this relationship with my partner has shown me is like, holy shit, it was never enough. And thank goodness I trusted the soul call that led me out, because now that I am with someone who is so like unparalleled in the way he understands and is able to just intuitively, like, we don't even have to work at it. We just naturally match and fit each other better. The amount of healing I am doing in my relationship, the amount of support we give each other just naturally is revolutionizing both of our lives. Like, without a doubt, it is allowing both of us to expand into ourselves, into bigger versions of ourselves in ways that we couldn't do previously when either we didn't have a partner, so you're trying to do it on your own, which is totally doable. But I will say, having a partner that is aligned is like, holy shit, it just accelerates everything. Or when we were in partnerships with people who we were not well matched with, and we were having to spend so much time in those relationships dealing with, triggers and unresolved projections and fighting with them and managing them and wanting them to change. So all of that's to say, I want to break down now like some of those pieces. And like I said, this is going to be almost kind of like I'm just like throwing these out as like a little bit of a smorgasbord to be like, hey y'all, this is what's possible. Here's some things you might not even think are on the menu. I know I didn't think they were on the menu. I had no fucking clue it could be like this. And I wish somebody would have said, hey, it can be really great. Here are some of the ways it can be really great. So let's dive into them. Okay. So one of the things that we do just like naturally for each other is both of us have this superpower of being empathically like connected to our partners without language. And we can feel when our partners are off, when our partners are maybe like, even when they're just like going through their own process and kind of disconnected from their own body, we can sense it ahead of time. Now, this was not a superpower for either he or I in previous relationships, because when that would happen, when we would be able to sense something ahead of time, if we would go to our partners, sometimes we'd go to our partners to be like, hey, is something up? I'll tell you all, this is not helpful when you have partners who do not like that. Partners who are then like, no, what are you talking about? Everything's fine. It just creates this like kind of feeling because you can sense something's off, but they don't have the awareness of their own shit. Or their own just like triggers and their own nervous systems to know, hey, actually, yeah, I am kind of going through something. From the beginning, this is something for him and me that we both had some trauma around, like not like picking up on things, like our spidey senses picking up on things and not wanting to talk about it. for fear that like it was going to set something off. But we really early on, and it was really facilitated through me being like, I want you to tell me when you're sensing something, because sometimes I can't pick up on stuff that I'm doing. I want you to feel safe doing that. But the beautiful thing is, from the beginning, we've never had a moment of like bringing something up with the other person and them freaking out about it or being like, you're crazy, or like, I don't know why you're thinking that. It has always been a space where like when stuff gets brought up, we just naturally slow down and drop into deeper introspection. So if he comes to me, and I love the way he'll do it, it's not even like him coming to me. Like, we'll be driving in a car and I'll be kind of like, and he'll be like, hey, how are you feeling? And I will know he's picking up on that. And instead of like hiding it, I feel safe enough with him to be like, actually, I don't know what's going on, babe. I'm feeling really like overwhelmed in my body right now. I remember like, oh my God, this was like the fucking sweetest thing. A couple weeks ago, we had a night where we'd said we wanted to go to dinner. And, you know, I knew he was hungry. We get in the car to start driving, and I just am filled with dread. Like, I couldn't even identify why, but I'm just like, I do not want to do this. And so we're maybe like 2 minutes down the road, and I'm like, hey, can you just stop the car? And granted, y'all, a part of me knows like this man is hungry. He has not eaten in a while. But I'm like, can you just stop the car? And we stop the car and we sit there, and I like almost can't speak. I'm that like flashbacked or triggered. And I'm like, I just do not feel like driving is going to take us 20 minutes to get there. I don't feel like driving. I don't feel like being around people right now. I don't know what I need. And he was like, okay. So we just kind of sat there for a little bit. And then I was like, maybe we could just like order in food. I think I just need to be like at home with you. And he's like, yeah, we can totally do that. Absolutely. And then as we drove to like, and maybe we were picking up food, I'm not exactly sure. I can't remember all the story, but as we're driving, I end up like there was some music on, and I'm like, you know what? I think I just need you to drive slow. And we just like drove in silence with the windows down and this music on. And I just let myself cry. And like at one point I ended up like sticking my head out the window, and he just drove, like just kept driving. There was a moment where we were like back around where we would have normally turned to go down my street to go home. And he's like, hey, I'm just going to keep driving. And I was like, yes, thank you. I just cried and processed. And it wasn't like he was like, what can I do? How can I fix this? What do you need? Freaking out. Like, he let me be in my process, and he just supported me in the way that I needed without even having to tell him, y'all. Like, we figured out what I needed together without any like freaking out or him getting activated and then him projecting on me and me projecting on him. This is like mind blowing to me that we do this so well, because I've been in relationships where it has not been like this, where anytime I am not stable or I am like struggling, my partner gets freaked out, and then I have to manage both him and me. So that has been like, wow, who knew that there would be a human in the world that would be like me in this way, and that together our superpowers would like combine and just magically like create this gift of intuiting and knowing how to respond to one another. And I do this back for him as well. So that's one of the things I want you to be aware of that exists. This is real. It exists out in the world. It is possible. Now, another one, like I said earlier, at the beginning of the year, me acknowledging I had CPTSD. Another piece that I just adore about us is that from the very beginning, in meeting him and just kind of his demeanor and the way he is in the world, I felt super safe addressing straight out the gate me having CPTSD. I'm pretty sure I talked about this in a previous episode where like I had a flashback and I just told him like, I have CPTSD. This is what it is. This is what I need. So both of us, through me educating him about it, have acknowledged like we both for sure have CPTSD. And I definitely have disorganized attachment. I'm actually kind of wigging out at this moment and realizing I don't know if I've told you guys that on the podcast yet. So if I have, I'm sorry, I'm just going to repeat it, but I don't want to leave it out if I haven't. I recently, in the last couple months, and I talked with you guys about this. Remember the weird, like, now that I have this great partner, I'm kind of like struggling, and part of my brain's wanting to like all of a sudden like be with other people at times. And it was that way probably in like the first 3 to 4 months of us dating. I've since learned that there is a fourth attachment style. In my attached episode, I only listed the ones that I'd learned about in that book, which were secure, anxious, and avoidant. But there actually is a fourth, which is called disorganized attachment. And lordy, y'all, do I have that? It is, mainly created through having pretty severe traumatic breaks in trust as a child, which of course my father molesting me when I was like 4 or 5 created that feeling of where you simultaneously like crave closeness and you absolutely are terrorized and in fear of it at the same time. So you're like drawn and repelled. So because of this environment, right? We both have CPTSD. We know for sure, I've self-identified that I have disorganized attachment. Because of that, there have been a lot of triggers over these past 8 months. Not even like him and I triggering each other, but just like life. Me entering a new community, me dating someone within the community. It's just, this is being a human, right? But where with other partners, in the past, like they would get triggered and project onto me, or like I would get triggered and come to them needing like, and of course at the time I didn't know that this is what I needed, but needing regulation, needing flashback management. They would not be able to give that and would instead get activated and triggered themselves and then project out onto me, where that is the case from the past. I have not experienced that with Joe. And now I just dropped his name. So now you all know my partner's name is Joe. I'm just going to, we'll just start calling him that. There is no projection from him. We go through hard things and we go through them together. And instead of them breaking us apart or even creating like fissures, I was talking with him about this the other day where I was like, with past partners, maybe we'd get through hard things, but there would be like fissures that would have been created from that experience that would like long-term ultimately eventually detonate the relationship. That is not the case with him. We go through hard things and we come out the other side knowing ourselves and each other better. And because of that, he is a partner that I don't fear going through the hard with. And I cannot tell you what that feels like, how amazing that feels like in my body to approach the world knowing I get to go through it with him by my side. That is an incredible level of security, safety, like this person has my back. And to kind of illustrate that, I think the closest we've ever got to this was a conversation. I brought something up that I was dealing with him that definitely triggered him. Now, in him being triggered, I wouldn't say he like fully projected on me, which is where you're kind of attacking someone and you're attacking them, but really you're just kind of fighting your own inner demon that you're thinking is them, basically. But the closest he's ever come to that, we left that conversation kind of like a little bit unresolved. And without me even expecting it, the very next day on his way home from work, he leaves me a voicemail where he basically says, like, I've been thinking a lot about that. And I realized that's not you, it's me. This is my stuff. And I just want to, thank you for being brave enough to tell me about it. And I'm sorry that I couldn't be fully open to what you were saying because I was triggered, and I want to support you. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, are you serious? Like, I had no expectation of that because I'd never even experienced that with a man before, where they can like step away, actually think about and process what happened, and then come back to you and be like, hey, that's actually on me. Like, what? So that exists. It's on the menu. It is out there on the menu. Okay. Another thing that has been just absolutely mind-blowing, could never have guessed that it would be like this, is that there is no manipulation in our relationship and so much trust. This sounds like, I know as I say that, I'm like, God, that sounds like so baseline level for a relationship, but you know, the majority of relationships, romantic relationships in my life they have had manipulation for sure. That's kind of the dynamic when you are in a codependent narcissistic relationship. There is a lot of that just happens like subtly and not so subtly. But with him, I realized that I have loved many people in my life. Like I have loved a lot of partners, but I have only really trusted a few. And actually, if I'm honest, like I would say I've loved many I've loved many people. I've only trusted a few of those people, and he is actually the only one of my romantic partners that I have actually truly trusted. And for me, when I really trust someone, that means I know that they will never try to turn me against myself to get me to do something that they want. Let that sink in. That is what real trust is for me, is when I know no matter what you want, you will really do what is best for me, even if that means we're not going to be together. That is, I'm so like tired of men who make their insistence on fighting for you and I love you so much, I'll do anything for you, I'll do anything to keep you, look at me, I'm doing all these things, and they make that seem like that is real love, like that is the most amazing love, when you will just hang in there and give up everything to stay with somebody and completely, quote, change yourself to make them happy, when I can see through that and see that it's bullshit. Because in so many of those instances, those men are not, it's not true love, it's obsession. They are just trying to keep something that they are afraid of losing. And they are pretending like it means that they love you so much. But often with the women who I see this with, when we dig down underneath, it becomes very apparent. They're like, oh, actually, he's like psychologically manipulating you into staying. He is not hearing you when you say, this is not a fit for me, or this doesn't feel good, or it feels weird when you're touching me all the time and you're saying you love me so much and now you're doing all these things. Yeah, I'm not going to go too deep into that because that is something I'm going to be talking about in an episode in the upcoming ones that are on the docket. But needless to say, wow, what a revelation to be in a relationship where I truly trust my partner and feel like he genuinely has my back and will not use me against myself to get what he wants. Now, another piece that I would say is kind of like an extension of this, in the like really being able to trust him, is that because, and it's not just because he's 15 years older, because I don't think that like, oh, men just naturally get this way when they get older. That is not the case. But I do think it helps that because we have such a significant age gap, and this is like the most important piece, because he has been through his own shit and done his own work, he is the first partner I've had who is more secure than me. And it makes everything in my life easier. I have been shocked to see how much having a partner that is secure, that actually is so secure that he has extra space for me, is not always in crisis in his own life, that support from him has made me better at work, Like I have so much more energy and space to devote to my creations, to my work. It has made me better in my mothering. That was something, in the last couple of months that really blew my mind. I actually had to get coached through this. I was starting to notice how much my nervous system was actually doing better, and I was feeling better when I was with Joe versus when we would be apart. I would notice a lot of dysregulation. And at first I felt like so much shame around this, like, oh fuck, we're getting too attached and I'm not confident or secure enough in myself. Just to like aha moment for all of you as well. In the attached book, I actually pulled it out at this time and was like reading up, and I was blown away to see the section that I'd like just at the time had not sunk in, that actually when you get into a, romantic relationship, your nervous systems actually start like, I think the best word to describe it is they like intermingle, and they start to just naturally biologically co-regulate off each other. So it was one really, really helpful to be like, okay, this is just what is. Like, this is just part of forming a romantic relationship with someone. And it doesn't have to be a problem, because it was me checking in, and ultimately through having Quinn coach me, realizing like it is good to want to have my partner around, especially if when I'm around when my partner's around, I am more regulated. I am more calm. I am more happy and connected and loving. And I had to do some belief work and shift my beliefs with Quinn's help into realizing where I previously had been very like, me and my partner, is very separate from like when I'm with my kids. Over the last 2 months, shifting into more of a space where Joe is around now with my boys, and he does stay when they are here. And that directly came out of me slowing down enough, and with my coach realizing, wait, things actually are better when he's around. You're better at your work. You're better with your kids. Why is this an issue? And I had to update these ideas, right, around me thinking that the goal is to be like two independent people that can totally survive on your own without each other. That's actually not biologically like accurate at all. When you share intimacy and emotions and life with each other, you're going to start to become energetically and nervous system connected, which also, I should probably do a whole episode on that, because that is part of also what makes divorce so difficult. Even if the marriage hasn't been good, there's a part of you that's still like in that same, especially if it's been years and years with that person, in that feeling with them. But I did want to share like one little example that just drove this home for me. One of my sons the other day, actually both of my younger sons have asked at various times, they'll be like, when's Joe coming home? Is Joe going to come home tonight? But my middle son was asking if he was coming home. And I was like, oh, he's, it was a night where he was going to be working and staying down at his place instead. And so I said, no, he's actually not going to be here tonight. I'm curious, like, why were you asking? And it was so sweet. He was like, well, I mean, just when Joe's around, we always do fun things. And I was like, and I knew I didn't in that moment, like, I just felt so like, exactly, because when Joe is around, I am a more grounded mother. I have support. I have someone who's there for me. And I do have to say, like, this is not just because he's a partner, though. This is because he is the partner he is. So I don't want, often people like get all hung up on the like, oh, it's going to be so hard to be a single mom when you don't have support. Let me just say this clear and very like succinctly. When I was married, I was a much worse mother than I was when I was single post-divorce. And I am an even better mother now only because I have a partner who is secure. So watch that like gradation, right? Like it's a spectrum basically. And just having a partner, just not being a single mom, does not actually mean you are being supported. I have plenty of women that I have talked to who are married to husbands who actually having those men around is more stressful. They are not supportive and helpful. They are not secure. And it is actually more of a drain on those women being married than I think it would be if they were single. Mind blown, right? And I can honestly say, like, I know this for sure because I dated a partner a couple years ago who, when he was around, I was actually, even though I thought like things are good and I love him and this is great, looking back now, because he was not secure, I was actually also experiencing a lot of like triggering and dysregulation, especially because he had 2 little boys. And when we were all together, it was just too much for me to have 5 little boys and, 5 boys in the house and him as well. I had to go through that experience to realize like, ooh, too much, not for me. So I never comprehended or believed that I could have a partner. That was never in my framework, that I would eventually have a partner that I could actually have around my kids, where it would actually be better having him there with us than not. I know some of you all might be like, well, yeah, duh. Like I've hoped that. That was not a hope for me. I genuinely left my marriage thinking like, maybe I can hopefully find someone that I can be loved by and enjoy when I'm not with my kids. But I never thought I would have someone that I would truly enjoy being with around my children as well. Okay, so couple more. Yes, these are the last 2. Y'all staying with me? So one of the other pieces that is just like, holy shit, this is so much better, I could never have dreamed or imagined, is sex and intimacy. Y'all, I, as you can tell, like, do not have words. I do not have words for how incredibly amazing, fulfilling, and mind-blowing it is with my partner. I have done so much healing with him through so much just of like understanding things I had no idea were what they were. And so to like show you guys this, in the past, sex, I would always say that for me, sex has been something like, even in my marriage, sex was not the reason I left. Sex was actually like a Band-Aid that we used to get through things. And looking back, I didn't know or like view myself as a very sexual person, because I now know I have to have a super high level of like emotional connection, feeling very seen, like I can fully trust my partner to experience the full range of my sexuality and my desire. But even back then, with a lot of the stuff in my marriage not being great in the ways that I now know I need, sex still was always something we could go to that would like, slap a Band-Aid on things and make it quote, better. But even then, I now know, because I now have some contrast, sex was always for me through the lens of my partner's pleasure. I definitely had a very patriarchal view of sex. I had a very patriarchal view of pleasure. A lot of my sex was very like penetrative sex focused. A lot of my pleasure came from making my partners have pleasure, which none of this is like good or bad. I want you guys to realize that. But I'm just giving you the contrast. What was hard about that was, I struggled a lot with orgasming with partners. I rarely had orgasms during I don't think I ever really during penetrative sex with partners. I struggled orgasming at all with partners, even if they were just like stimulating me. It was like stressful, and what that led to was me having a lot of mental constructs and ideas around my sexuality, and thinking that maybe I was broken or there was something wrong with me, or just having this idea that like I can't orgasm easily. It's really difficult for me to orgasm with partners. And I knew that because in my own self-pleasuring practice, it worked great. But when I would get with partners, it just seemed elusive and difficult. Oral sex always sucked. Like I had not ever orgasmed with a partner from oral sex. I didn't even really understand like why it was enjoyable. Like this is where we were at. And even with all that, gals, I still thought like sex is great and like I really love sex. Especially, post-divorce, intimacy and sex with my partners over the years of dating was always really good and really enjoyable for the framework that I had, right? Contrast that to what I have experienced the last 8 months, and oh my God, y'all, it's like I was in kindergarten and I am now in like a PhD program. And some of the most amazing things that have come out of that, I just feel it in my body, is this like deep fucking certainty that I am not broken at all. That there is nothing wrong with me. It all works amazingly well. It really depends on who I am doing it with, who that person is, and how deeply connected and safe and trusting I feel of them. And then having a partner who is just so invested in my pleasure. I have never, ever. I had so many guys that I dated that would just talk it up. Oh, it's all about you. I'm so into your pleasure. And then when it would really come down to it, there was no patience. No, like, it always felt like, okay, any second now. Yep, there they are. Now they're trying to, get the dick in. Like, it just, and so I just always thought like, yeah, I'm broken because in the amount of time they're giving me, I can't reach that. And so it must be me. No, for one, now that I'm with a partner that I really like feel adored by, and here's another piece, who is super affectionate. Like he is so affectionate with me. Comes up, wraps his arms around me while I'm cooking in the kitchen. Like if we are in the kitchen, he will end up coming up and hugging me or touching on me multiple times. Like we just love being close to each other. And this is another just like example of being better matched with someone because he is super affectionate. I had no idea I loved this much affection. Definitely when I was in my marriage, I thought like my love language of physical touch was like least. Please don't. Now I know that it too is actually probably my top one, but just a like mind-blowing example of how in his previous relationships, the amount of affection and physical touch he wanted with them was like a bad thing. He was, he actually came into our relationship having like trauma from previous relationships where he would get reprimanded or told like, I don't want you to touch me, or like, don't initiate. Like I will initiate, do not initiate. Whereas for me, it is like the best being held, being cuddled, being touched. Like the other night, in fact, there was a moment where I was feeling kind of like weak, and he came and like laid me down in the bed, and I knew he needed to like fix a wrap on his foot. So I figured he was just going to like lay me down and then go do that. And instead he lays me down and then like cuddles up behind me and like snuggles me in. And I was like, oh my fuck, I love this man. And it's not something I had to like ask for or tell him like I need more of this. It just is. It just is him, and it just is me. And that level of affection is phenomenal for me when it comes to intimacy, because I feel loved and wanted outside of just getting sex from me. And that makes me a much more naturally open, receptive partner when it comes to intimacy. On top of that, I have, he is somebody that, because we have so much openness of being really like vulnerable, and that's really come from me establishing like I want this super vulnerable, open relationship. He is someone that I have been able to explore so much more of my kink with, to discover. There's a book called Existential Kink that I don't know if I've talked with you guys about it yet, but I'm actually doing a coaching program with them at the moment. It is insanely life-changing. It is some pretty like deep, I would say advanced high level kind of stuff, but I started reading that book right before I met him, or even it might have been a couple months after I met him, and it just lit me on fire. And incorporating that, like understanding my shadows and being able to use my shadows in kinky ways to actually enjoy more pleasure together, has been so fun. So just like, oh, wow, I had no idea that this level existed. And for someone like me, that is what I thrive on. I love living at these really, really high levels of human experience. So 5 years ago, I can tell you right now, this is not what I thought was going to be possible in sex and intimacy. Not even close. And even within, I would say, a year ago, I had no idea that this existed and was out there. And I want to add a little caveat here that I think how I managed to get to this point with him, what I did have going out of my divorce was a very strong dedication to myself that I was never going to settle again. That I was never going to stay in a relationship where I was choosing somebody else over myself and my own growth ever again. And I can see how that has led me out of relationships in the past. And through leaving those relationships and continuing on with my growth, it led me to where I am today, which is this relationship with him. Okay, the final piece. Woo! I love talking about that stuff. In the future, actually, I'm thinking, I don't know if I'll do it so much in a podcast episode, but I know in the community when it opens, one of the months is going to be all about sex and sexuality. And because I am super passionate about that, having had my own like incredible journey with that from, Mormonism and in my marriage to where I'm at now. So maybe not something for the podcast, but it will be something we discuss in the community in the future. And I can't wait. That'll be so juicy. The final thing I wanted to mention that has just blown my mind is I had a conversation with my boys the other day. We were driving to school, and I was talking about kind of like toxic masculinity to them. And I was referencing some man that I feel like kind of represents the worst of what we think masculinity is. And my oldest said, well, what does it mean? Like, what do you mean by masculine? And I, of course, as you guys know from the podcast, I don't really like phrasing things as masculine and feminine because I think these energies are not meant to be gendered. Remember, I had that whole episode of like, I think they are meant to be human. We're meant to have both of these polarities of what we have separated and made into masculine and feminine. So I was talking about how I was basically saying, well, in saying masculine, I was talking about this set of characteristics that we normally think of as being male, but really what you want is to be a full human. And I was like, so, where this man was being just only these masculine traits, what would be more whole is for him to also have some of the feminine traits, which are being more kind and gentle. And so as I'm saying that, my oldest says, so you mean like transgender? And I was like, no, that's actually not what I'm talking about. Not necessarily a man wanting to become a woman as much as I'm talking about having all of those characteristics inside of you, no matter what gender you are. And my littlest out of the back, I didn't even know he was listening, says, oh, like Joe. And in that moment, y'all, I was just like, yes, I'm doing it. Like, this is what I wanted for my boys. Now this is one piece I do remember feeling when I left my marriage of like wanting them, especially coming from a very patriarchal religion where there's really only one kind of type of masculinity in Mormonism. And especially like with all of the like anti-gay sentiment there, I wanted my children to grow up seeing different examples of what it means to be a man. And I never dreamed that I would end up dating a partner. Just to like provide some framework for you, Joe is this incredibly beautiful, like, I think I'm gonna get his height wrong. I shouldn't say it, but he's over 6 feet. He has long hair that he wears down sometimes, but also puts back in a man bun. Holy shit, man buns are the best. He has this very just like gentle, warm, grounded energy. He does not have to like press into a room and be the attention. And he and I go get, our pedicures and manicures done together, and we get matching pedicure colors, and he always has his nails done. And when we've gone out, we go to events with our friends in the ecstatic dance community where we dress up, and sometimes he'll wear my earrings, and he is just, and sometimes he wears makeup. Oh, I love doing his makeup. It is so much fun. He looks so incredibly good with eyeliner on. And my boys have they've seen pictures of us going out to events. They see Joe with his nails painted. They see him with his long hair. They feel his energy. And it expands their version, their idea of what it means to be a man. And that means everything to me, because I want my children to grow up knowing there's not just one right way of being a man. And especially with how toxic I think a lot of our culture's images of men are, it is, such an unexpected and like amazing, wow, it's so much better moment to hear my littlest say, oh, like Joe. The littlest, who at times is like, is Joe coming home tonight? So to kind of like encapsulate all of this, I want to finish off by sharing what I've kind of been flirting and talking about throughout the episode of wanting to explain what we got to experience this weekend. So I want to close out the episode by kind of like culminating it in sharing with you like what this weekend got to be for me and how incredible it was. On Friday night, I had invited a small group, like 6 of our closest friends from the ecstatic dance community over with the plans to we were going to do like a potluck style and then we would swim. And of course, since I live so far out from Dallas, everybody was invited to sleep over as well. And actually it was 6 friends. So they come over. We have the most amazing evening. So much laughing, y'all. I have not laughed that much. I don't think ever. Not even in high school did I have like a friend group like this. We ended up all staying up till like 4 a.m, just talking, hanging out. It was the best. And then, that next morning we wake up, we all make a big breakfast together. We're all sitting around the table, talking and conversing. After they leave around like 1 o'clock, Joe and I end up going out. We spend the rest of the day sunbathing by my pool. And even like, it was adorable. I've got some leaks in my pool that I wanted to self-repair. So I'm, in the pool, putting in this like pool putty, and he's literally just like in the pool next to me as we're talking, like just wanting to be near me. And I even said to him, like, I fucking love this. I love that, maybe in a different relationship, I'd have a partner who's like, up reading or on his phone but not with him. He wants to be near me. He just wants to be close. That's another thing I love about him is like, at night, often I'll be getting ready or something and he'll be in bed on his phone. And as soon as I like climb in the bed, his phone gets set down. Like when we are together, we are together. So anyways, we're in the pool, repairing these cracks, having this amazing time together. And then we get done and we decide to eat, and we'd gone inside and been frisky and cute with each other. I'm just so fucking in love with this man. It's incredible to just feel so much desire for him all the time. And we finished and we're driving to the restaurant, and I asked him to take a different route that would take us like kind of the back roads, and we roll down the windows and we've got the music on and the sun is setting. And it just like hit me in waves of like, oh my God, this is my life. This is my life. I am living something that I couldn't even dream was possible. Even just a year ago, I mean, some parts of it were definitely possible a year ago, but I mean, definitely 5 years ago, had no idea that this could be possible. And even just a year ago, still had no idea that he was going to come into my life, that this community was going to come into my life. I mean, 5 years ago, I was a married Mormon stay-at-home mom, like struggling with suicidal ideation and massive depression. And I really thought back then that the problem was me. I really thought like you have this beautiful life and this beautiful husband and these great kids, and like you get to be a stay-at-home mom and you don't have to worry about money. Like, what is fucking wrong with you? And I now know, like last night, just I turned to Joe, who I know has also been through just so much in his life. And I looked at him and I was just like, oh my God, babe, we're doing it. We're doing it. We are creating this incredible like life and relationship that we deserve. And it felt so just like, yes, I'm doing it. And so I really wanted to put out this episode to convey this feeling and this energy of like, you have no idea what's ahead for you. You have no idea how much love and expansion and healing is possible when you choose wherever your soul call is taking you. And that doesn't, I want to say that doesn't always mean you're going to leave, but it does mean you start bravely speaking up, advocating, taking the steps, doing the next pieces to follow wherever it's going to take you. And as you guys know, I'm very clear. It doesn't mean it's been easy. I think it's a mistake when we want life to be easy. It hasn't been what I would say is it hasn't been easy in the ways, like I don't even like that word, because it's been life, and life is dynamic. Life is highs and lows, and that is not easy. Feeling all of those things is not easy, but oh my God, is it worth it if you want to live a truly deep life that resonates and fills your soul up. And I want this episode to maybe act as like a call from your own future back to you, of how when you follow your path and you trust yourself and you take the steps and the leaps and you move into the unknown with like lots of fear and also bravery, you have no idea how beautiful it can get. You can't even comprehend what the universe has in store for you ahead. And I say that with utter certainty from my own journey, because last night it just hit me. I was like, oh my God, this was never on the vision board. I had like a vague, like, hope it gets better. I think it will, but the depth of this, the experience that I'm having in all those areas I listed, would never have dreamed. So all of this to say, listen to your soul calls. I have no idea what your life has in store for you. I didn't even know what it had in store for me. But I did know what it felt like to hear that call. I knew what it felt like to hear that call and not listen to it. I knew what happened to me when I did that. For me, that was just deeper depression, suicidal ideation, the merry-go-round of just doing the cycle over and over and over again. And I knew what it felt like to follow it, which was like hella fucking scary. And also, it's like this scary with this like knowing of like, okay, I've got you. We're going to figure it out. I don't know the plan. I'm going to just take one step at a time. And those one steps at a time have led me to the life I just described to you. Oof, y'all, I'm so glad this episode came today. It's been wanting to be shared. I always feel so much relief at the end. Just hopefully, there's so much like I feel so much, and sometimes it's difficult to get it out in words. So, yeah, I am so grateful to have gotten to spend this time with you. I hope that there have been things that have touched your own soul calls. I do want to say, keep checking in with yourself, keep listening to what you're feeling called to do, and yeah, to just also say I'm always here for those of you that are wanting to reach out and either work with me one-on-one or do a 90-minute intensive. I had some time this last week. I actually went back and interviewed women that I had done 90-minute intensives with to just kind of do like a little bit of a post, like, how are things going? What did you think? And it's been really amazing to hear back from them. And one of the things I've heard the most is them saying, like, yes, it was amazing. And you've given me all these resources. And I would love more of that community support, more of that daily, like, interacting with other women that are going through the same things. And I'm like, yep, I see you. I know what you're talking about. And the acknowledgement too that like this journey takes time, and I'm really excited. The more that I'm working on this community, the more that I'm hearing back on like what you all are actually needing, I'm realizing I do think this is going to be a huge piece, because sometimes it just takes time to build up the self courage, to build up the self love through seeing others' journeys, through realizing you're not crazy, and through seeing others love you back to make the decisions that you need to make. So, keep listening, keep hanging in there, reach out to me if you want, that personal individual help, and know that the community is coming. And when it does, I cannot wait to see the things that we will create together. Love you all.